All right, let's get right into it. The battle for the future of AI. It's not just happening in code, it's a full-blown, high-stakes war, being fought on a microscopic battlefield, inside the tiny chips that power everything. And that brings us to this guy, Michael Burry. Yeah, the investor from The Big Short. He recently dropped this cryptic quote from the movie War Games. You know, the one where a supercomputer figures out that the only way to win a nuclear war is to not start one. His message is pretty clear. The AI stock market might be so risky, the smartest thing to do is just stay away. But here's the twist. Burry isn't just sitting on the sidelines. He's doing the exact opposite. This number, over $1 billion, is the size of his massive bet against two of the market's biggest AI darlings, NVIDIA, the undisputed king of chips, and Palantir. I mean, this is a move so bold it sent some serious shockwaves through Wall Street. And to really frame his thinking, he changed his social media bio to Cassandra Unchained. Now, if you remember your Greek mythology, Cassandra was the prophetess who was cursed to always tell the truth, but never be believed. So Burry is basically casting himself as the one person trying to sound the alarm in a world that's just completely drunk on AI hype. And right at the center of all that hype is an empire built on silicon. So, to really understand why Burry is making such a gigantic, risky bet, we first have to appreciate the sheer, raw power of the kingdom he's betting against. Let's take a look inside NVIDIA. 80%. Just let that sink in for a second. That is NVIDIA's share of the AI chip market. They are not just a leader. They are, for all intents and purposes, a monopoly on the single most critical resource in this entire AI revolution. And they built this incredible kingdom on the back of something called the GPU, the graphics processing unit. Now, these were originally designed just to make video games look awesome. But it turns out their ability to do thousands of calculations all at the same time, that's called parallel processing, is exactly what you need for the insane demands of AI. But here's the real secret sauce. NVIDIA's dominance isn't just about the hardware. The real key, the thing that locks everyone in, is their software platform, CUDA. You can think of it as the language that lets developers talk to the GPU's raw power. And CUDA is basically a deep, wide moat around NVIDIA's castle. See, developers have spent more than a decade building code on top of it. So for a company to switch to a competitor, they'd have to rewrite everything. It's this brilliant walled garden that makes leaving incredibly painful and expensive. And the demand for their stuff is just out of this world. NVIDIA's own CEO, Jensen Huang, said he can see a pipeline of $500 billion in demand just over the next year. This is not a company at its peak. This is a company staring at a runway that seems to go on forever. But you know how these stories go. No kingdom, no matter how powerful, stays unchallenged for long. And the challengers are gathering at the gates, ready to attack from all sides. So first, you've got the direct competitors. AMD is coming in hot, targeting one of NVIDIA's weak spots, memory capacity, which is super important for the biggest AI models. And then there's Intel, which is playing its own unique card. They have their own factories, their own foundries, which gives them a lot of control. But here is where the plot really thickens. The biggest threat to NVIDIA might not actually come from another chip company. It might be coming from the very companies that are their biggest customers. Say hello to the frenemies. We're talking about giants like Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. They're spending billions and billions on NVIDIA chips, but at the same time, they're secretly in their own labs designing their own custom chips, like Amazon's Trainium and Google's TPU. And why are they doing this? Well, it's about two things: cutting costs and, maybe more importantly, not being so dangerously dependent on a single supplier. And then you have the real wild cards. These are the challengers who aren't just trying to build a better version of what exists. They're trying to completely change the rules of computing itself. Looking a little further down the road, the threats get even crazier. On one side, you have something called photonic computing. Think computers that run on light instead of electricity. It's wild stuff, with the potential for massive speed while using way less energy. And on the other side, there's neuromorphic computing, chips designed to actually mimic the way the human brain works. Either one of these could, in theory, make all of today's technology look like ancient history. Okay. So, with that whole battlefield laid out, the kingdom, the challengers, the wild cards, let's circle back to Michael Burry's warning and see if we can spot the cracks he's seeing in those castle walls. So Burry's argument isn't just a hunch, it's a list of serious red flags. He's pointing to this insane, maybe unsustainable surge in spending by tech companies, and he says it looks a lot like the overbuilding we saw right before the dot-com crash. He's also flagging data that shows cloud computing growth is slowing down, and he even warns about these shady-sounding circular deals, where one AI startup gets an investment, then immediately uses that cash to buy products from the investor. It looks like real demand, but it could just be an illusion. Which brings up a really critical question. All this record-breaking spending, this historic build-out of data centers, what is it all for? And what's the ultimate hidden cost? Well, the simple answer is power. The AI revolution runs on a staggering amount of electricity. These massive data centers that you need to train AI models are incredibly power-hungry. We're talking about an energy problem so big, it could actually become a bottleneck that chokes off the entire industry's growth. And Burry's warnings? They had a real immediate impact. In just the 10 days after his billion-dollar bet became public, NVIDIA's stock dropped over 10% and Palantir fell over 17%. I mean, that wiped out hundreds of billions of dollars in value, which just shows you how nervous the market really is under the surface. So all of this, it leaves us at this really fascinating moment. It's a high-stakes standoff between the king of the hill and a whole army of challengers, with basically the entire future of technology hanging in the balance. And this is the final showdown. On one side, you've got NVIDIA's fortress, protected by that deep CUDA moat, fueled by $500 billion in demand and riding this incredible wave of market hype. But on the other side, the siege engines are lining up. You've got the direct competitors, the powerful frenemy customers building their own weapons, those disruptive future technologies on the horizon, and of course, the big systemic risks, the bubble warnings, and the energy crisis. Which leads us to the final billion-dollar question. Are we witnessing the start of a genuine technological revolution that's going to change our world forever? Or is this just the latest massive market bubble, pumped full of hype and unsustainable cash, just waiting to become the next big short? The honest answer is nobody knows for sure. The future is still being written.